going to present about a summary of auditing and accounting during and after COVID-19 crisis. What we can from the CGPA journal are many confinement brought since this pandemic to make sure auditors keep performing in this field effective and effectively. Mandatory closure of many businesses have been extended beyond the grace period offered by SEC. Before pandemic, audit evidence is more reliable as it is obtained from source external to entity in documentary form or directly from the auditor. This evidence form are for determine the sufficiency of quantity of evidence to be recorded. Since COVID-19, many methods are used as alternative to record audit evidence and complete the report. For inventory, observation verification, documents collection, property plan and equipment assessment, interviews, and many more. They have got the solution by camera and drones, video feed, and other technology that can be used for conducting a remote virtual auditing. The awareness about the present issue of fair value, going concern, and subsequent event are counted by auditors as these are also affected by the pandemic. About fair value, as economic shutdown affected goods market and pricing, it caused less liquid, less frequent observation, and up-down of the price as well. So, the auditors should alert about any disclosure regarding valuation and market volatility and lack of liquidity are accounted. Going concern is another present issue the auditors should be aware of. In this matter, auditors should aware in going concern evaluation such client debt, the reality of source, alternative source of revenue, and diversity of its strategic plans, also the cash flow during pandemic COVID-19. Auditors should be cautious with their estimate when it comes to define during audit examination period. Next, subsequent events. There are two types of event. The one where provide additional evidence about conditions that exist at the date of the balance sheet, and the event where it provide information about it that didn't exist at the date of the balance sheet due after the date. This type of event are material to financial statement and what extent should be event be disclosed.
The first issue is it possible to do remote virtual audit for inventory counting under ISA 501 during COVID-19? As noted that the spread of COVID-19 has escalated across the world and has led to the mobility restrictions. So the lockdown situation may impact the auditor's ability to perform audit procedure, include attending verification of inventories. Audit firms are required staff to work from home and ban staff from travel, and the client are telling auditor to not come on site visit. So what is under ISA 501 audit evidence specific consideration? ISA 501 stated that they require an auditor to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding the existence and condition of inventories. It provides guidance to auditor when physical inventory counting cannot be performed or is impracticable. In such situation, the auditor shall conduct a physical inventory count at the date other than the date of financial statement, or performing another alternative procedure to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding the existence and condition of inventory if attending a physical inventory count is impracticable, so that they can apply in that situation. Next, the effect is in certain situations where physical attendance by auditor is not possible, so they may be able to observe the count by using remote virtual audit, which is via video call with the help of technology. For example, the auditor able to conduct first person view FPV inventory observation.
So the ethical dilemma is whether to proceed with remote virtual audit or not, and if the auditor proceeds with remote virtual audit, is it even permissible under ISA 501, and to what extent do the auditors fulfill the ISA? So if the auditor proceed with remote audit, they may be violate the ISA 501 standard, because as Shafika has mentioned before In ISA 501, it requires the auditor to attend physical inventory counting in order to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the existence and condition of inventory if the inventory is material to financial statements. But if they decided not to do the remote audit, they don't have any other choice, since at this time the authorities have discouraged or even forbidden large gatherings and unnecessary travel. So the best position for auditors to do auditing is by doing remote virtual audit. A remote audit is a dynamic process that evolves as it unfolds. It is auditor-led and guided and requires constant adjustments to interview questions and document requests as the audit progresses. Interviews are conducted in real time via Zoom or Skype. Documents and data are shared and reviewed on file sharing apps, and touch-enabled walkthroughs are performed on request. Remote auditing comes with the challenge of virtual management. There are a lot of advantages and also limitations. So, the advantages of using remote virtual audit is that it reduces travel costs. For an audit program with multiple annual audits, remote audits can provide significant savings. Other than that, it can also improve use of available technology, strengthens documentation and reporting. Facility personnel's use of technology to capture video and photography information contributes to improving their understanding and use of available technology. This contributes to better documentation of facility conditions, improved ability to report incidents and conditions to remote corporate personnel, and also increase opportunities for future remote training tools. Lastly, it can also improve organization and confirmation of required documentation because facility personnel have to review and assemble the required documents. Remote audit provides an opportunity to organize and confirm that all documentation required for a regulatory inspection is readily available. Some limitations of the remote audit approach include first-hand observations cannot be replaced. There is nothing like seeing processes firsthand, observing body language, or even noticing a smell that shouldn't be there. Online auditing also has limits under certain conditions, such as you cannot see the real conditions of the asset or inventory. Conditions of the inventory affect their fair value because if it is damaged, the value may be need to be reduced. Second, remote auditing makes it hard to build relationship with auditors. Opportunities to provide hints, tips, and observations for improvement are lost. It is hard to identify best practices or describe things that others may benefit from outside of the documentation process. Good auditors do this, and these are often the most useful things that auditors get from the exercise. Lastly, the lack of in-person interaction opens other opportunities for fraud. The opportunity to present doctored documents and to omit relevant information is increased, and this may call for additional planning, some additional or different audit procedures, or a follow-up once the barrier to a traditional audit lifts.
Alternative position. If the auditor didn't choose remote virtual audit, the auditor had another alternative procedure, which is roll forward and roll back procedure. So the auditor could count inventory and observe it at a point in the future, which is roll forward, and then perform additional testing on the sales subsequent to year end. Or the auditor could effectively roll back the inventory to the year end even it was counted subsequent to year end, and the auditor can choose either before or after the date of financial statement, which we call roll forward and roll back method. Here, pro and cons of roll forward and roll back procedure. Pro is timing. The management and auditor can plan when inventory count want to be performed because of a 10 physical count is impracticable. For example, in our cases, due to COVID-19, the management and the auditor are unable to schedule inventory count at the end of financial year. Thus, the auditor can highlight to the management that they can perform by using roll forward and roll back procedure. Cons is the value of inventory can be lower. Since ISA consider the condition of inventory, so if there is any effect or damage or obsolescence of the inventory, so it can reduce the value of inventory itself. Next, roll forward and roll back can only be done if the management have good quality in internal control. It is because we rely on the sales and the data, and then we can do the roll forward, roll back where the management have good internal control. If the management have weak internal control, so the data we rely on is unreliable, therefore it can increase the risk.
The other issue is about interviews during COVID-19. During these times of quarantine and self-isolation, the audit team may be required to conduct interviews and discussions with management. Whereas these interviews and discussions generally occur in person, now such interactions will likely to happen via video conferencing tools such as Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, or Microsoft Teams. We knew interviews are extremely important because it helps to look beyond the documented process. So these interviews with the process manager and the people performing the work may uncover the detailed process behind it. But auditors face unique challenges when conducting field work, where travel restrictions oblige them to work from home. At the same time, the travel restrictions can affect the quality of the work that needs to be done. So, careful consideration is needed to determine whether all aspects of the fieldwork phase can be performed adequately on a remote basis, as auditors face restriction when it comes to conducting interviews, assessing confidential data, and verifying the authenticity of documentation. Furthermore, they face disruption in communication within the audit team. Arrangements should be made that auditors can work remotely, have direct access to necessary data, and have the right technology that enables them to verify the authenticity of documentation and to conduct interview with relevant parties remotely. Also, in this issue, auditors need to ensure that they have sufficient commitment from key auditee, as literally they are out of sight and verbal communication has to be arranged for. So getting specific questions answered in time may be a challenge and may be solved by ensuring sufficient backup arrangement regarding key auditees. Next, I'll pass to my group mates Izzat to explain about the ethical dilemma and position.
So today I'm going to talk about the ethical dilemma. Auditors need to face dilemma to do interview session where it's appear between to do the virtual or not. The reason being dilemma, auditing raises some challenges in interview relevant personnel during remote audit. Usually, auditors need to interview key managers and workers to cross-check the implementation procedures. However, for remote audits, the workers are interviewed while being observed by the management. Besides that, it is also tough for an auditor to randomly sample interviews because there is a risk that the organization might select someone familiar with the process for the interview. In addition, non-verbal communication that can help detect inconsistencies is difficult to capture during a remote audit. And then, based on the ISO 9001, the remote audit practices, remote audit is one of the audit methods described in ISO 19011. The value of this audit method resides in its potential to provide the flexibility to achieving the audit objective in order to realize the benefit of this audit method. All interested parties should be aware of their role in the process, input, output, risk, opportunity. It will provide the basis to achieve the audit program and audit objective. However, we must consider the limitation and risk posed by ICT in fulfillment the audit interview. This information includes security, data, protection, confidentiality issues. Remote audit refers to the use of ICT to gather information, interview, and audit when face-to-face methods are not possible or desired. The next part is position. Interview and discussion generally occur in person, but due to the pandemic COVID-19, where there are a few restrictions or to move in or move out within MCO area. So the best position for auditor to do the auditing work, especially in interview workers and management, is using a VAR method where it could ensure the safety and healthy for both sides during this pandemic. Usually, using virtual auditing remotes, especially on interviews during COVID-19, also have pro and con itself, where the use of different technology is definitely helpful. The video conferencing is great as the face-to-face component of the end audit is important. Body language is always useful in auditing for both auditor and certificate holder. The first pro is use of ICT also allows for the inclusion of expertise in audit, otherwise might not be possible due to financial and logistic constraint. For example, the participation of a technical expert may only be needed analyze project for only 2 hours with the available technique expert may be able to analyze the process remotely. Thereby, it is reduced time and cost associated also with the travel. The next pros is it might be difficult to pick up non-verbal clue and gain initiative understanding of other individual with a video conference. Although reviewing this video recording later can be mitigate their weakness or even improve the traditional process. And then move to the cons, where auditors should be familiar with the tools to be used. Should have a waiting room, password for meeting such as control are absolutely critical, given that some discussion could be sensitive in nature and video meeting will be hacked where such a robust security and privacy control were not in place. The last cons is eye-to-eye contact occurs more easily in person and less often with a video. So the both parties should familiarize themselves with the follow best practice, which is, for example, the looking directly in the camera.
For alternative position, if it's not possible to review the necessary component audit book papers, whether in person or electronically, the group auditor will need to undertake other measures such as postpone or delay. The way of conducting audits has changed dramatically, mainly due to remote working. Although interviews and remote walkthrough have been more efficient than expected, it is almost inevitable that planned audits are postponed, delayed, or even cancelled. From a supervisory perspective, regulators also indicate to consider rescheduling and in many cases already postpone on-site inspections and are extending deadlines for the implementation of remediation actions. This alternative way also has its pros and cons. The pros here, it is allow local management and auditors time to recover from the disruption resulting from the virus. Office closures make it likely that work will be behind schedule in terms of original reporting deadlines. But the group auditor will need to understand whether the reporting timetable has been set due to regulatory or other deadlines. If it reflects company preference only, a delay should be encouraged. The other pros are auditors get to adapt to learn the new processes and systems. When it comes to adapt to the reprioritizations or delays that occur within the business, they need to reassess their resources, knowledge, and capabilities. They need to adapt and learn about tool and technology that allow access to all audited information, authenticates auditing, and provides video access to audited paper documents. While for the cons, a delay in the reporting timetable could allow for time for the spread of the virus to slow or to stop, and for travel restrictions to be eased or lifted. However, there is no guarantee that these conditions of COVID-19 will improve. Lastly, there might be assumptions in having material weaknesses in internal control. So that's all from us. Thank you.